Hello, Internet, and this is a fair warning. I'm a pastor, and anything you say may be involved in a sermon illustration. I'm just telling you. It's a little warning that goes around my house, and so if you engage, I can't promise that it won't go up into the data banks and make it into a sermon someday. So fair warning, okay? Welcome to Pastor Have You Seen This? This is our little production of Allen Creek Community Church where you send us internet content. We have a cold take. We just comment on it without having seen it before. So that's what's going to happen right now. And if you want to send us something that the pastors of our church will comment on, just send it to this address right here. You see the one at the bottom of the screen, social@ac3.org. And we'll be happy to comment on it, get a conversation going, like, subscribe, and we will absolutely comment when you engage with us. So looking forward to that. And let's look at what one of you sent us, something about teaching in China. And when you teach in China,
China, you start at 8 in the morning and you don't get done till 5 at night. They were sitting there, all 22 of them, and I looked around and I said, now, if we get caught, what will happen to me? They said, oh, you'll get deported in 24 hours and we'll go to prison for 3 years. I said, you're kidding. How many of you have been in prison for your faith? Out of 22, 18 raised their hands. I thought, no way. I had 15 Bibles and I passed them out. Obviously 7 didn't get them. And I said, let's turn to 2 Peter chapter 1 and we're going to read it. And just then one lady handed hers to somebody next to her. And I
know
thought,
it's coming.
Interesting. Well, we turned there anyway, and as we started reading it, I understood why she gave it away. She had memorized the whole thing. I went over to her at a break and I said, you recited the whole chapter. She says, oh yes, I've memorized many chapters. I said, where did you memorize so many chapters? She said, in prison. You can't take what's hidden in your heart. I said, how can I pray for you? I'm going to go back to America. And I said, you know, Wayne, you guys can gather like this whenever you want to in America. We can't. Could you pray that one day we'll be just like you? And I said, I will not do that. I said, because you guys rode a train for 13 hours to get here. In my country, if you've got to drive more than an hour, people don't come.
They won't come.
We have an average of 2 Bibles per family. We don't read any of them. And when you teach in China, you start at 8 in the morning and you don't...
Okay, so I remember this pastor's name is Wayne Cordero. I've heard him many times. I have a book by him on my shelf. This is, right. When we compare the American or Western church to the persecuted church in Southeast Asia and in closed countries like Islamic countries like Pakistan, Iran, there's just no comparison in terms of the commitment and when they understand the word disciple and follower of Jesus to mean something more than just believing some beliefs, then you just have to look at the persecuted church to see a picture of what that means in practice. And so this brings to mind some fire that my associate pastor, Alex, laid down last week in a sermon when he said, do you know what Christians who can't or not allowed by their government to gather do? They gather. That's right. When you're not allowed to gather, you gather. Guess what Christians do when you're completely free to gather anytime you want? We don't gather. So similarly, this video that Wayne Cordero talks about with his experience dealing with the persecuted church in China, guess what people do when they don't have Bibles? They read the Bible and they memorize it. Guess what people do when they have 2 Bibles per household? They don't read it and they don't memorize it, okay? So the irony of this is just astounding, and it's true. It's just a fact. And I guess it just goes to the idea that softness, let me put it another way. Softness is the outcome. The catalyst is privilege. Privilege breeds softness. And a lack of privilege breeds commitment and intense devotion. Because you don't sign up for Jesus in a closed country like Iran or Pakistan, and Pakistan isn't fully closed, or like China, without knowing exactly what you're signing up for. And if you are signing up for the thing Jesus said everyone who follows him should be signing up for, which is deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. And Christians around the world should know that's what it means when you put your faith in Jesus. But Christians in persecuted countries can't help but know that that's what that means. And so a great word to us in the West, those of us in open Christian or countries with Christian backgrounds, we enjoy freedom of religion because of Jesus. Most every place on the planet where there's religious toleration is because Christ and Christians paved the way. Ideologically, the idea of being tolerant of people of other faith traditions is something born mostly out of a Christian tradition. Yes, there are some other examples outside of the Christian tradition, notably King Cyrus of Persia. The Roman emperors could be tolerant of other religions, but they were very clear that devotion to the Caesar cult was number one devotion. That's why Christians were persecuted so much, because the early church experienced what these Chinese Christians experienced, which is in a system where belief in Jesus, where Jesus says loyalty to me has to come above all your other loyalties, including your loyalty not just to your country but to your own mother and father. Well, then that immediately comes up against countries and civil systems and governments that demand your top loyalty and devotion be to the state. And so that's why it was Christ is Lord juxtaposed with Caesar is Lord, and it sent many of those early Christians to the games, to the wild animals, and to the Colosseum, and it sends many Chinese Christians to prison. And what an incredible purging, refining fire that is. So they say, we wish we were more like you. And he says, I will not pray that you could be more like us. I will pray that we, those Christians I know in the West, will be more like you. I'll just end with this because I could go on and on about this. My parents served as helpers, volunteer workers at a Christian training institution in Hawaii. By the way, Wayne is a pastor in Hawaii. And in Hawaii, this training institution served marketplace Christian leaders who would go back into their countries, often in closed countries or poor countries in the world, and live out their Christian faith in the marketplace or in Christian ministry. And my parents, when they first arrived at this training place, they realized the hard stories of many of the people who arrived there. Their ways having been paved often by Western benefactors, but sometimes by themselves. They scraped together every penny just to get out of their country so they get to be trained so that they could go back to places like Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, and poorer countries, open countries, but poor like Malawi and other places. And my parents were very embarrassed. They were embarrassed by the opulence of American wealth. And the feeling was, oh no, these people from the poor countries are going to come and they're going to get jealous of us. And they're going to get so jealous, they're going to want to stay. And they're going to not want to go back to their countries and do the good works that they had intended to do. And when they got to know these foreign nationals, my mom and dad both said that this fear that they had of jealousy and envy was exploded after just getting to know a few of them, because the emotion that they most had was not envy for us, but pity. Because they saw the situation that Wayne is illustrating here. They could see that Western privilege had led to Christian softness and lack of devotion and nominalism, which is being Christian in name only, and not to be a devoted follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. And seeing that, they said to themselves, the truest, best emotion we could feel for our Christian brothers and sisters and for the religious ethos of the West isn't jealousy. It wasn't to envy us, but it was to pity us. And somehow they got what Jesus was laying down, which we have forgotten, which is something like this: blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who mourn. And so I will pray the same prayer that Wayne prayed, that we might be more like them and be ready and geared up for a time when perhaps our own faith may be more challenged externally. And God make the church ready. And if it's time for the church to be purged in some sense of its dross and emotionalism and its nominalism, then let it come, because The Lord knows who are his. And if the church in the West is full of people who are Christian in name only, let the testing of the fire of persecution show who's really his. And yeah. And as you can see, it tends to the spreading of the gospel, not to the diminishment, because the church is going crazy in places like Iran and China. All right, that's all for this. So, hey, if you got something else to send for us to comment on, please send it here to social@ac3.org, and we'll get a conversation going with you.